A very good morning to you, Nigeria. Now, welcome to Breakfast Extra, but first, let's get into our monologue for today. This week, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu finally released the long-awaited ambassadorial nominee list, a list meant to restore Nigeria's global voice after nearly 2 years without substantive diplomatic representation. Instead, what we got is a masterclass in political recycling. This list should have read like a roster of Nigeria's best minds. I'm talking our finest diplomats, economists, scholars, seasoned negotiators. Instead, it reads like the guest list of a political thank you party. So, let's begin with the headliners of this list, shall we? The very first is the former INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, the man whose tenure, by the way, left Nigeria's electoral credibility hanging by a thread. The same chairman under whose watch the 2023 elections were marred with logistical chaos, glitches, and even contested elections and results. This nation is still yet to agree what was the outcome of 2023 regarding the votes. And now he may be rewarded with a diplomatic posting. And so it begs to ask a question about how a man who could not deliver real-time election results that he promised, by the way, but soon will be speaking for Nigeria in real time to the world. And then we have Femi Fani Kayode, FFK, as he likes to call himself, the former minister, chronic party defector, and a man whose political ideology changes faster than Nigerian fuel prices. He has pending corruption cases with the EFCC and a long history of inflammatory comments and an equally rich archive of public apologies for those comments as well. This is who we want representing Nigeria's global image, Abi. A man who cannot keep a political home is now expected to keep political, or better yet, diplomatic decorum. And of course, there's everyone's favorite, the people's favorite, Reno Omokri. Look, there's a social media post of his friend that posted about him, and there's a line from that post that I absolutely love. He said, quote, "When do you know when Reno is lying? Pause. When he opens his mouth." That's the person. Social media pugilist, a professional provocateur, and a full-time dispenser of controversial takes. A man who trends for the wrong reasons more often than Wi-Fi will disconnect during your Zoom meeting tomorrow morning. This person is who we're picking to be on the ambassadorial list. Critics will wonder, is diplomacy now a Twitter space? Are we sending envoys or influencers, Mr. President? Good morning, sir. The opposition has called the list scandalous, and might I add, a shame. Civil society has called it unserious. Ordinary Nigerians are simply asking, who did this to us? Oh God, why did you bring me to this country? Because truly, how does a country battling with global perception issues decide that the best fix is to send this trail, please put on the ambassadors, shall we? Yeah, there we go. As its ambassadors, this put Reno for us, please. Yeah, that guy. Our foreign missions have been empty since 2023. Investors have been complaining. Development partners have been frustrated. A lot is going on. It's just Nigeria is desperately needing diplomats who can rebuild trust, attract capital, and negotiate partnerships, as well as restore our standing. Instead, we are getting a mix of politically exposed persons, controversial figures, Twitter influencers, and don't get me started, and individuals whose reputations abroad may enter the room before they do, and not in a flattering way. Because if somebody is going to say, someone like Reno, how do you know he's lying is when he opens his mouth. What are we going to do with this? Tell me. Anyway, the list is now heading to the Senate. The Senate will screen them. But if recent history is any guide, Screening may simply mean reading out their names loudly and offering them bottled water. We watched the swift confirmation of the new INEC chairman, didn't we? We watched security chiefs sail through in record time, didn't we? In this era where the legislature is less a check and balance and more of a rubber stamp, it's only a matter of time before that list may just become confirmed. So, here are the real questions for today. If the Senate confirms these nominees, what happens when they step into the world? Can they restore dignity? Can they revive Nigeria's diplomatic strength? Can they, including Reno, attract investment, negotiate peace, defend human rights, and advance national interest? Or will history record this list for what many fear it is? Not a diplomatic strategy, but a reward ledger for political loyalty. A list of allies sent abroad not to strengthen Nigeria's global position, but to pack them safely out of domestic politics. Nigeria, we hail thee. Because if our envoys cannot embody the credibility that we seek, then what exactly are we exporting? And if Nigeria does not demand integrity at home, and does it, how will it expect that same respect or integrity abroad? And that, ladies and gentlemen, my dear viewers, is what is at stake this morning. And we seek to answer these questions here on Breakfast Extra. My name is Judith Atibi, of course, not to forget Chiwete Oyema is here with us as well. Chiwete, good morning to you.
Morning, Judith. Trust me, as you're just, going on with your monologue, this statement just came to mind, and it's just, here we go again.
There we go again.
Here we go again. It looks like when it comes to appointments in Nigeria, it's like a reward for those who have worked for you at some point in time. I mean, Reno Mokri is one person that's been very loud about, Tinubu's administration, how he feels Tinubu's administration is doing so well. So it's looking like it's a reward. The same thing, Fani Kayode was very vocal about the support for Tinubu as well. He was part of his campaign team. So it's looking like it's just a situation where they just use these positions to reward people. It's really sad.
I want to be rewarded as well, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, let's go to a short break, shall we? When we come back, we get started officially on Breakfast Extra. Stay with us.
Good morning, and you're watching Breakfast Extra right here on News Central. We've got an exciting lineup of discussions today, covering a range of important topics that affect our daily lives. We're talking the economy, we're talking wellness. Here's what you can expect today. So we're going to kick things off by diving into the Nigerian Senate, yes, where they're proposing death penalty as a maximum punishment for kidnapping, for banditry, and for terrorism. We'll also explore the ambassadorial nomination list as President Tinubu has finally sent a major batch of ambassadorial nominees to the Senate nearly 2 years after taking office. Then after that, we head to Kano State, where Emmanuel Abagudu's report highlights the human and structural challenges behind the recent attacks in Kano State. And of course, we explore a political realignment as Atiku and El-Rufai officially join the ADC. And then finally, we examine the military takeover in Guinea-Bissau, which of course has sparked international condemnation and raised serious questions about the state of democracy in parts of Africa and the challenges faced in ensuring stable governance across the continent. Of course, we're excited to get things started, but first off, let's check out our news streams.
And let's bring you our news troops for this morning, shall we? It's quite a packed news troop today, and so much has happened the entirety of this week. Now, the news troop, if you do not know, you just tune in for the first time and wondering what the news troop is about. It's about the cartoon editorials that you find on the back of your daily newspapers from Monday to Friday. Now, we have scoured through the internet and all of the newspapers, all of the dailies, and we've picked some of our favorites for this week. So, without further ado, let's roll them. Our very first one that we bring up for you is from Business Day. And quite a lot has been going on with insecurity and the army. And just this week, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has declared a state of emergency on insecurity and security. And so this just nicely captures what we're talking about when it comes to insecurity. Of course, you can see the signpost over there. Insecurity, battlefield, sabotage, corruption, sabotage, sabotage. And of course, what do you see there? The boots are nicely labeled, the Nigerian Army, just there for you. You can see what looks like a landmine over there. Corruption, sabotage, corruption, sabotage. Now, it's very interesting that the Nigerian Army is about to step on sabotage, which I've tried to think of what the analysis for this will be, but I always come up empty. So Chiweta, I'm going to bring you in on this. Chiweta is on standby, by the way, and he's my analyst for today. Chiweta,
so I think this is well represented, because when you look at it, you wonder, we keep changing service chiefs. I mean, just before we had this heightened situation of insecurity in Nigeria in the last 2 weeks, we just changed our service chiefs. Like one would expect that, they're new, they want to hit the ground running and all that. But here we are. Looks like the military does not have an idea or cannot control the situation of insecurity. So it only tells me one thing, or two things now. There's corruption and there's sabotage, meaning that it just might be that we have some terrorists within the Nigerian Army. Well,
that's it. Well, terrorists is a strong term, though. But I would go with that. But also, I would like to add another layer on there. I feel like it's, that machine that's eating themselves within? I guess that's the term I'm trying. I don't know what it's called, right? It's a virus that's eating itself from within, right? At a time such as this, there's just about a month ago, there was murmurings of, or was it within this month? There was a murmurings of, a foiled coup, so to speak. Yeah. And so the military have been battling Boko Haram at their door front. They've been battling banditry, battling kidnappings, battling Lukarawa. There's so much going on. So is the virus sitting itself within? But I wonder if there's also an outside element that's causing this landmine where they're about to step on, which is a sabotage. Do you get what I mean? Like, what could be the outside element? But anyway, also, before we miss out, the corruption as well is very interesting.
It's also there.
It's also interesting. Anyway, moving on. The next one is Daily Trust, shall we? And I absolutely love this one. You know why? I don't know what the name for this playground equipment is. I don't know what it is.
I think it looks like is that what they call a seesaw?
Oh, see, yeah. I didn't play
there's a local name for it, though.
Jangalova?
Yeah, you got it. That's it, right there.
Well, I thought Jangalova was swing. I thought it was swing.
Yeah, well, I think they call it a seesaw. I think that's the.
All right, so seesaw. See, I didn't play too much on the playground. My folks tied me inside with books. But anyway, as you can see that there, seesaw, on the playground, what appears to be might just be the president. I mean, you can see from the glasses and, of course, the heart, and not to forget the infinity symbol. And then you have right opposite him is what appears to be a bandit, We've termed them bandits here with the media. And so you can see that. And with the weapon, right behind him. This is a classic dress code for the bandits that we see, which their videos, which has now proliferated social media. And on top of it, it goes, as 24 girls are rescued in Kirby, 10 more are kidnapped in Kwara. And you can see there from Daily Trust, and you just see them, what appears to them to be the terrorists or the bandits or the kidnappers or Boko Haram or Lukarawa. Because I mean, this painting just fits whatever description you choose. And of course, on the other right there, on a green seat, by the way, is the president, and right there opposite him, the armed assailant is on a red seat. Very, very symbolic. But Chiwete, Your take?
Of course. I mean, remember yesterday when I was, of course, having my monologue yesterday about the whole rescue situation with our girls that were kidnapped, and for worshippers even in Kwara State who gained freedom. And I said show working because it wasn't adding up at all. You know, people just got released just like that. No information as to what exactly happened.
Right.
Because we know how these things work, you know. Something must have happened. They can't just release them because it took them, it's work to actually kidnap people if you look at it. So for them they can't just release people that way. So hearing that, you know, and you're wondering so what really happened, I think this right here just describes what it looks like. It looks like this is what's happening right now. They're just playing with themselves, basically. It looks like it's kind of like a joke right now.
Yeah, like you. I mean, I don't know sawmill. Yeah, there we go.
Seesaw.
Seesaw. Is it seesaw or sawmill?
What?
Moving on. Yeah. Let's move on to our next one, shall we? This one here is, of course, this is our very first. Maybe for me, but I've never seen. Fredolution _now. This is my first time having an editorial from them, but very interesting depiction of insecurity. Right? It's titled collusion, which, if you flip it on its head, it means collaboration. Right? And you can see both what appears to be either an assailant or a terrorist. I'll just keep it as a terrorist, with his bazooka and his AK-47 and what seems to be I don't know, it's canisters, there we go. And then you can see what they're dragging there is a citizen. Now, we don't know who the citizen is, but to your left here, or right, my right here, is a Nigerian flag, which, of course, you can now tell that the law might just be a member of one of the security agencies for Nigeria. And to the left is what appears to be a flag of one of the Islamic groups. I do not know which is one of the terrorist Islamic groups, and you can see that they're being pulled away. And so collusion, a subtle nod to what might appear to be alleged collaboration with the terrorist and the law. Remember when you said something about, Chiwete, remember when you said something about, earlier with our first editorial, when you said there might just be terrorists in the army. Yeah. I stand corrected. Maybe your theory may just be corrected, maybe just be right, because if this is a very, very expository and also incriminating editorial. Your take, Chiwete.
It looks like it, honestly. It looks like it because when you hear of the fact that our Nigerian army are trying to, you know, make some level of progress, you realize that you hear things like they're being ambushed. You hear things like, you know, they don't get enough information, or they're not as equipped as those they're fighting against. It kind of tells you, it kind of looks like there's a collaboration. Now, of course, it can't be everybody, but it might just be those.
There will always be bad eggs.
Exactly. But there'll be those who are making decisions within the army, or those who are gathering intelligence or gathering information, who might just be selling it to the other side. Right. So it might just be the case.
Yeah, you make a solid point, because there's always good cops and bad cops. We've seen that both in the other climes as opposed to just Nigeria alone. But we've also seen accounts on social media of persons who have said that, you know, when their cars, travelers or commuters who were going from one state to the other and who were attacked by kidnappers or bandits, they would always say that a mile away or 2 miles away there was a checkpoint there, or, you know, there seemed to be some presence of, you know, security agencies just around the corner or around the vicinity, but somehow the attacks still happen.
You remember the Kebbi situation where the governor said the military left just about 45 minutes before the bandits came to attack the school. Right. So when you hear things like that, you can only but wonder that what's really going on here.
It's unfortunate. Well, let's move on, shall we? Don't dampen. Let's not dampen everybody's mood. Let's take another one. Look, you know how I feel about religion, Chiwete. He's laughing at me. You know how I feel about religion, Chiwete.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so this is business day, right? It's quite interesting. Business day, this editorial, what appears to be it Okay, wait. Hang on. This person, whoever this is, seems to be a caricature of a particular clergyman that we've seen before. With the speaker, repent for the kingdom is at hand, but also holding a rifle and a town. Now, I don't know what this is, right? But I would like to think that this is him with the gun trying to protect himself and the people, like freedom of religion, in my opinion. I think this is freedom of religion, in my opinion. The only way that he can preach the word of God or preach salvation on the streets is to arm himself so he's not attacked. I want to think so. This is it. All right? That's what I want to say.
Honestly, I think this right here describes what it has become now in Nigeria. Honestly.
Okay, that's better. I would take that one.
Because it looks like, and people have said this before, I do not trust Nigerians enough, right? So I might not necessarily agree to that, but there has been, a call for people to start to defend themselves if the government cannot do it. Because, it looks like we're not safe. You're literally in one place. One would think that when you go to church, it's like the safest place you should be in. But right now, it looks like it's a major hotspot for bandits to attack. So it's looking like right now, you have to do it for yourself because your government will not do it for you. In Kwara State, there was an attack. Yes, they got them back, but some people died. Yeah. So it looks like we're getting close to this situation of self-defense.
Right. But again, look, Chu, it's a very solid analysis, but I'm just going to add one contradiction here and say that every media and every lobby group and every civil organizations should all fight back against this notion of arming private citizens. Nigerians at our core, the vex. For lack of a better word, I'm going to go to local parlance with the vex. Do you get what I mean? And the level of road rage that we have, and our education level, don't get me started on that. No. For people to go buy arms, and that's even on lower middle class, lower class, right? If you go to the upper class, we know the level of abuse of power that the upper class has or the elite has over the domestic staff or even their staff itself. One boss will wake up one morning and just doesn't like the way you looked at him or reply him, and we ain't doing that. That's what I'm just saying. I'm just saying, if you cannot still solve, look, the army has intelligence. From the patterns we've seen, we know that they have intelligence. The problem is acting on that intelligence. They've refused to, they cannot do that. For the life of me, I do not know why. Lukarawa, Boko Haram cannot outnumber the Nigerian army. I'm sorry. The thing of saying numbers, I don't think numbers is the issue. What I think it is will. It's the will and respecting the pledge to protect the lives of Nigerians. Respecting that pledge, because when you think about it, these are just random groups in the forest who are fueled by drugs and the ammunition that they have.
Remember, I said that it's a case of results. So I hear you on the situation. We analyze this every now and then on TV, but the fact is the fact. The result is not forthcoming. So whether we say we are outnumbered, whether we say the military is sabotage, whether we say the service chiefs are not competent, whatever it is. Well, we're saying the president is not taking the situation seriously.
Right.
We are not safe in Nigeria, especially those who are church attended, who attend churches. We've seen it in recent times that they seem to be targeted. I'm not saying that they don't attack mosques as well, but the churches seem to be more popular now over the years. The church attacks seem to be more popular than attacks in the mosques.
Yeah. I hope they don't hear you now. Anyway, moving on. I think, is this our final strip for today? Oh, we got one more. Let's go. This is a staple with Daily Trust. There's the father and the daughter thing that they like doing. And what's very interesting about the characters is that the father always have a kofini. I've forgotten how it's pronounced. Also, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it's a scarf that is synonymous to the people of Palestine. And then the daughter always has the mofla on her arm, which is a flag of Palestine. Really much talking about the genocide which is going on and the ethnic cleansing going on in Gaza. But away from that, bring back our students now, plastered right at the wall there. The father goes, "Why won't you go to school anymore? Don't you know you are the future of the country?" And of course, the daughter responds, "Then why is the country allowing its future to be kidnapped?" A crucial question that we all have been asking. The entirety of last week going into this week, we have seen the numbers of kidnapped and released girls across schools, so much so that it is now schools, unity schools, as well as government schools in the north central, northeast, and northwest are all closing down due to insecurity. Now, might we add that this was just weeks into the first term examinations, and a lot of questions have been asked about, what it means for a region that already has a low children in school numbers, and a region that is still tackling with girls in school rate as well. And in seeing this, seeing this wave that has happened in the last 2 weeks just brings to fore the issues of education. But Chiwete, your analysis.
I mean, you just said it right there. I mean, a region who already has a problem with, getting the children to go to school. Remember a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, when he was serving years ago in Sokoto State, he said, when they post them, of course, to schools to teach, he said at some point in his school, they were offering money to children who came to school just to encourage them to come to school. So that's how bad the situation is in that region. And then with insecurity now, they have more than enough reason to stay away from school. And we know what the ripple effects will be in years to come. So we're battling with the situation of education in Nigeria, and now there's insecurity. It's a sad situation. I'm just really hopeful that the whole insecurity situation will be fixed so we can have our children back to school. Like Ijoma said yesterday, we really cannot afford to have our children outside of school because we're not even ready for that alternative solution, or the whole talk about, schooling from home and all that. We're not ready for it. We don't have the infrastructure to do that right now. So the government has to fix this situation of insecurity and let the children go back to school, especially in the northern region of Nigeria.
Might I just add as well that the elders and the elites of the north, we're not hearing them anymore. Arewa Consultative Forum, we have been mute. We know, except I stand to be corrected, except you've made a statement. All of the leaders of the north, where are you at a time like this?
Well, the governors are supposed to have a meeting, though.
Besides the governors, there are those who are pressure groups and those who are very influential voices in the north, besides the governors who sort of sway, public interest and public opinions there. And so at this time is when we need to see them advocate. But let there be political appointments, and the north was not in there. You will see them. Just wait. Or election time, they will come outside plenty. Anyway, that's pretty much all the strips you can take for today. Chiweta, solid analysis, by the way, my friend. Let me get over there. Let's get started officially on Breakfast Extra. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Still Breakfast Extra right here. Our next focus is on a major development from the National Assembly, one that has sparked intense debate across the country. Now, amid rising security breaches and a wave of violent attacks on communities, schools, especially in Kwara, in Niger, and Kebbi states. Now, the Nigerian Senate is proposing the death penalty as the maximum punishment for kidnapping, for banditry, and for terrorism.
The proposal followed a heated plenary session on Wednesday where lawmakers expressed deep concern over Nigeria's worsening security situation. The trigger was a series of deadly incidents, including the attack on a church in Iruku, Kwara State, and coordinated assaults on schools in Kebbi and Niger states. Our National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim filed this report on the Senate's deliberations and what the proposed legislation could mean for Nigeria's fight against insecurity. Take a look.
The November 18 attack, which showed heavily armed men storming Christ Apostolic Church in Iruku, Kwara State, killing 2 worshippers and abducting 38 others, set the tone for the tense debate. While considering a motion on the urgent need to curb insecurity in Kwara, Kebbi, and Niger states, lawmakers warned that schools, churches, markets, and rural communities have become vulnerable targets for terrorists and bandits.
Intelligence reports revealed the involvement of internal collaborators, often driven by economic and political desperation, who aid criminal groups with information, logistic, and escape routes.
Several lawmakers questioned why kidnapping victims are often released unharmed while perpetrators remain unarrested. Others raised concerns over the withdrawal of soldiers from the school in Kebbi minutes before the attackers struck.
The governor of Kebbi said that somebody ordered troops out and people were kidnapped. Till today, nobody in Nigeria knows what happened, and no question has been asked. And we're sitting down here as a parliament, and we turn and we talk. Yet, somebody is responsible. Some of these tactics are becoming increasingly, obviously counterproductive. Perceived or real payment of ransom embolden these bandits to continue in their exploits.
President, Nigeria is at war and international conspiracy is involved. So we should all understand that, and we should not trivialize this matter.
Review the Nigerian firearm law. Every man deserves the right to protect and defend his life and that of his family. And bringing a knife to a gunfight can never be a fair fight.
The debate concluded with increased calls by lawmakers for the adoption of the death penalty for kidnapping, banditry, and terrorism.
It is time for this hallowed chamber to put a very strong voice to probably once and for all passing a death penalty on anybody involved or associated with kidnapping.
An amendment to the Act to ensure that the offense of kidnapping becomes a terrorist act, and in addition carries a death sentence without any option of fines of fine, and without any discretion on the part of the judiciary. Those in support say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate thereafter approved more than 10 resolutions, including an investigative hearing to determine why troops were withdrawn from Government Girls Secondary School, Maga, in Kebbi State before the abduction, and to establish the circumstances surrounding the death of Brigadier General Megari Uba with a 2-week deadline for findings. The committees on Army, Defense, Interior, and Police Affairs were given 1 week to brief the Senate on actionable measures to address rising insecurity in the country, while the committees on Air Force and National Security were dissolved over non-performance. The Senate also resolved that its leadership should meet with President Bola Tinubu to formally communicate the Chamber's position and urgent security recommendations. From the National Assembly, Abuja, for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
And now, have you seen from that report, the summit covered a range of critical issues, including Nigeria's fiscal and monetary policies, structural reforms, and their impact on growth. But what does this, plenary mean for Nigeria moving forward as regards security? Let's quickly just bring in our guests that are joining us and just the implications of the issues that we're going to be discussing. First, we have Dr. Steve Okuri. He is a security consultant and strategist and also a fellow of the Nigerian Army Resource Center. Dr. Steve Okuri, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on to the program this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Let me just get started first and talk to you about the issues that are just being discussed. You've seen the report that was filed in by our reporter Sagir, and you've seen all this happen the entirety of the week. What was your first immediate reaction to the Senate's proposal introducing the death penalty as a maximum punishment for kidnapping? And do you think that this is 2 years or 5 years too late?
Yeah, let me start by saying that when I watched the proceedings and the pronouncement or the proposal for death penalty with regards to kidnappers, for me, it was coming late. Number two, I was wondering, the kidnappers that they want to, or they are thinking or intending to propose a death penalty for, is it the kidnappers that we see government and politicians negotiate with, that they are proposing a death penalty for, or another type or other type of kidnappers that we don't know. In this country, unfortunately, government, whether we like it or not, and politicians negotiate. They have conversation, they dialogue with bandits, they dialogue with kidnappers. So they are there proposing death penalty. And that's the way I said, I don't know the kidnappers that they're proposing that for. Unfortunately, in this country, Nigerians are kidnapped on daily basis, ransom paid almost on daily basis. The number of Nigerians that have been kidnapped in the past 1 year is more than the population of some countries. In Guinea-Bissau, other countries, they have less 2 million population. So what that means is that if the kidnappers in Nigeria, if they go into these countries and they carry out acts of kidnapping, it means that the countries will cease to exist, right? In the last 1 year, from June 2024 to August 2025, Nigerians paid 2.56 billion naira as ransom in this country. You are also aware that the National Bureau of Statistics came up with a report, that's a federal government agency, came up with a report that 2.2 million Nigerians were kidnapped and 2.2 trillion naira was paid as ransom. And we saw that the government, the National Security Advisor, granted a press conference trying to debunk the report of the NBS. But I want to put it to you that when I did my PhD in security and strategic studies, my PhD thesis was on kidnapping for ransom in Nigeria. And it afforded me the opportunity to interact or interview well over 50 victims of kidnapping for ransom. And I know how much they told me they paid, right? And the trauma and the agony they went through is still haunting them as we are talking, right? And I also interacted with kidnappers, and the confessions that they made, right? I begin to wonder that, is it the way that we want to go? Because that proposal is amazing me. Why? Because once you negotiate and dialogue with bandits or kidnappers, what that means is that you are emboldening them. You are giving them, you are strengthening them to embark or carry out such acts of kidnapping on Nigerian citizens. So what we need to do as a country is that, yes, death penalty is a way to go, it's a welcome development, the fact that it's coming late, but negotiating with kidnappers and dialoguing with them, is that the way to go? Then if you are dialoguing and negotiating with them, how do you now apply the death penalty that you are thinking about, that they are proposing, right? So we should be serious as a country. We should take decisive action against these issues that have bedeviled Nigeria in the last couple of years.
Dr. Corey, looking at it from an expert point of view, do you think extreme punishment, like death penalty, truly deters, kidnapping networks, or are these crimes driven by, deeper structural issues?
See, this country, it is not by talking, it's not by policy or speeches. What we need is decisive action. I think enough of talk, we need to walk the talk, right? On your screen, there's look at kidnappers showing ransom they collected from Nigerians. Let me tell you, in this country, there are chains of kidnappers. From what I found out, what you see are foot soldiers. Their sponsors are out there, arming them, telling them what to do. So if you get hold of the foot soldiers and you don't get to their sponsors, it means you have not done anything. You are not achieving anything at all. Because these monies that they collect from Nigerians are taken to their sponsors, right? And their sponsors are out there, they look like you and I. We even envy them based on the kind of cars or houses they live. But this is where they make their money from, right? So as a country, we must be serious in addressing this issue. The point is, how serious are we? How do we track when these monies are paid? You see these videos on the social media platform where kidnappers are maltreating, torturing Nigerians, where ransom they collect are shared or are displayed the camera, the camera that they used, the phone that they used in videoing this and sending it to the social media platform. Are you saying that the government don't know what to do, how to track this camera, the phone? The phone has an IME number. They have a SIM, whether the SIM is registered or not. But I know that we have the technology to be able to track. In this country, when you say something wrong about a government official and you use your phone, they will track, they will trace and get you. But why are we finding it difficult to be able to apprehend this set of criminals that make Nigerians go through a lot in this country?
Sir.
So the chain is that we must see how to disconnect that network. How do we do it? The government, security agencies, they know what to do in trying to see how to address this issue.
I mean, earlier I was also saying, I was almost towing the same line as you were when I said that I don't think it's a matter of numbers, it's more of a matter of will, right? And you said that the dissertation or your thesis or your doctorate was on kidnappings. And so I'm interested to know what the fundamental factors were and what were the hotspots for the rise of kidnappings that you found in your thesis.
Yeah, you see, there are different types of kidnapping, but I measured my on ransom because my interest then was to know how these monies were collected. Was this monies, how they are, is it that they bring cash or they transfer the monies to various certain banks, accounts and all that? Because when you hear how much is paid, you begin to imagine if Nigerians had to go and go to the banks, withdraw these monies and take to kidnappers. Now, I got to know that, number one, it's the phone of the victims that they use during ransom negotiation. Because the kidnappers are aware that if they use their own personal phone, the security agencies could or may track them. So they use victims' phones most time during ransom negotiation. At some point, when you hear that the victims' phones are not available, it means that their battery got drained and the phone was shut down. So at that point, the kidnappers try to see how to charge the phone so that they could be able to reach out to families of victims to continue the negotiation. Now, number two, I discovered that this money that is paid actually doesn't go to the perpetrators, right? I discovered that there was a case of 50 million naira that was paid, and the kidnappers told me that one of them got 300,000, another got 400,000, and another. So the question now is, where does the bulk money go? The bulk money goes to their sponsors, right? And another victim told me that when there was a time that they were held in captivity in the forest, somebody came to see them. While they were coming, while the person was coming, he was privileged to see the foot of the person that came. And that if you see the foot of the person in the palm slippers, that this is looking so fresh, and the perfume that came along with the person, you will discover that the person that came into the forest was one of their sponsors, because based on what he saw. So the fact is, how do we now, that network, how do we now get to it? Because it's very difficult for our security professionals, whether they like it or not. It's difficult, but by their professional training, it is easier for them to see how to get to the root of the sponsors, who these people are. If we don't know who they are, then how do we now begin to see how to clamp down on the kidnappers and their network? So I think that we need some more professional training as security agents, and the government's seriousness and the will, right? Because whether we like it or not, this crime of kidnapping started in this Fourth Republic, right? And it's for the government and the security agency to see how to address it. Because Nigerians are going through hell, whether we like it or not. The victims that I interviewed told me that they don't wish their experience in the hands of kidnappers for their enemies. So just imagine that what you don't wish your enemy to experience. So it means that it's a horrible experience, right? Some victims were unable to cope to remain in Nigeria. They had to leave the shores of this country, in order to recover. So a lot is going on in that kidnapping business. And I've said it some time ago that from what I saw, from my interaction with them, I discovered that kidnapping for ransom has come to stay. Unfortunately, that is the reality. That's the truth that is befalling us at the moment.
Dr. Corey, if you could recommend one urgent, structural reform Nigeria must pursue within, say, the next 12 months to reduce, kidnapping, what would it be?
Punishment. Punishment is the way.
You're saying punishment, but then now they have put in the death penalty. Would that be enough to deter the kidnappers?
Now, yes, it will be enough, but not completely. There are certain things that we need to do as government, but in terms of punishment, it's a way to go. Let there be that penalty, and we should be serious about it, right? And the will of justice. Imagine the case of Evans, the famous billionaire kidnapper. It took the court 5 years to prosecute his case, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Imagine the sums of money he collected from his victims, killed some persons to be able to achieve what he wanted to achieve. Imagine Wadume, Hamisu Bala from Taraba, a notorious kidnap kingpin, was arrested. They took him to court. According to the court, the prosecutor could not establish that this notorious kidnapper that is well known, that he was a kidnapper. So rather than sentencing him to life imprisonment as well, the court was able to establish that he escaped from a lawful custody, and he was caught with unlawful arms in his possession and all that. And they had to sentence him to 7 years imprisonment. And from the day they arrested him to the point where he was sentenced, the way they had to run concurrently. The man ended up spending less than 2 years in prison and came out. And unfortunately for us in this country, a notorious kidnapper, when he went back to his community, it was a heroic welcome. The members of his community went to the boundary between their community and the other community to welcome him home. That's the kidnapper, right? And from the point where they welcomed him, he now went to the traditional ruler's palace to pay homage. How can we have such situation in our country? Wherein lies our value system this time? It means our value system have eroded. We no longer see where a criminal is punished. We see where a criminal is celebrated by members of his community. And we're talking about other youths that are out there that want to, see him as a mentor, right? So a lot we need to do. The judiciary, they need to see how to quicken processes when it has to do with criminal activities like kidnapping, right? So that in 5, 6, 7, 8 months, max 1 year, they are sentenced, right? And also the governors of our states, how quick or how well do they even sign death penalty? As we speak, we have over 3,000 in our prisons that are on death row. Governors are refusing to sign death penalty. I don't know why they are refusing to sign death penalty when the court has judiciously prosecuted the case, and the judgment or the outcome is death, and governors are refusing to sign death penalty. So we are talking about the will. The will must be there, to see how to address this. In the event where these people are sentenced to death, possibly they see where they killed their people, they are sent as criminal colleagues, it will serve as deterrent. In Afghanistan, the way they treat kidnappers, once it's established that you are a kidnapper and it is pronounced in court that you are a kidnapper, how do they carry out execution? They kill you and take you to a public square, just like our Unity Fountain here in Abuja, and they hang you publicly. People pass and see that this is a kidnapper, and this was how he was killed. They hang them publicly. So it's also served as deterrent. I'm not saying that we should apply that in Nigeria, but I'm just giving an instance that this is how it's done in Afghanistan, right? So there's need for us to be serious and the will to be able to confront this common enemy.
Right. Doctor, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us and just giving us your insights as well. But before I let you go, because I know we're pressed for time, just in a minute, right? There's now been calls for Nigerians to arm themselves regarding this, kidnapping. And we saw the senator representing Calabar municipality, and that's Atiku Ekpeyong, saying that Nigerians need to arm themselves. We've also seen Senator Nedumoko also push for this bill. What do you make of that? Has it gotten to the point where Nigerians need to start arming themselves against assailants and kidnappers?
Well, if the government, they are the lawmakers, if they amend the law and it's contained in the law for Nigerians to arm themselves, I think they are the people representatives. So they know what best is okay for the citizens of the country. Situation where the government is on Section 14(2)(b), which is the primary responsibility of government, security and welfare. We're not even talking about welfare of the citizens of the country. We're only talking about security here, and the government is unable to fulfill that section of the Constitution. Right. If the government cannot provide security for the citizens of the country, then we should look out for alternatives.
All right. I must say thank you once again, Dr. Stephen Okuri. You have been very sublime this morning, giving us insights. As always, this conversation reminds us that Nigeria's fight against kidnapping is not yet over. We do hope that this bill passes and, of course, be implemented, and we see that death penalty being pronounced and added to the Criminal Act or Criminal Code Act of 2015. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we'll bring you the news. Stay with us.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Chiwata Onyema. We begin with reactions trailing the ambassadorial nominations. The People's Democratic Party has condemned the list of nominees submitted by President Bola Tinubu, describing the selections as reprehensible and scandalous. The president sent the names of 32 ambassadorial nominees to the Senate for confirmation days after submitting the first batch of 3 names. In a statement signed by its National Publicity Secretary, Ini Obonga, the PDP said the list includes individuals perceived negatively by Nigerians and the international community due to integrity deficits and notable anti-democratic activities. The list includes 15 carrier ambassadors and 17 non-carrier ambassadors, with 4 women on the carrier list and 6 on the non-carrier list. Notable non-carrier nominees include former presidential aide to Jonathan Reno Omokri, a former INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, a former governors Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi and Victor Okezie Ikpeazu, former ministers and ex-first ladies. Carrier ambassadors nominees include Enebechi Monica Okuchukwu, Musa Abubakar, and Yvonne Ehinosen Oduma, amongst others. Confirmed nominees are expected to be posted to key international partners, including China, India, South Korea, Canada, and strategic multilateral missions such as the UN and African Union. Additional ambassadorial nominations are anticipated in the coming weeks. And now, security matters. The Nigerian army has successfully repelled a major terrorist attack on Chibok communities in Borno State. In the early hours of Saturday, over 300 terrorists launched an assault around 2:50 a.m., but troops from the 28th Task Force Brigade swiftly detected the attackers and engaged them from multiple fronts. The intense firefight lasted more than 2 hours, preventing the terrorists from breaching the community's defenses. As daylight broke, the terrorists retreated towards the Azera Axis and the Sambisa forest. Meanwhile, a meeting of the 19 northern state governors in Kaduna has been postponed due to a separate security engagement involving governors from 7 northwestern states. The session was initially scheduled for November 29 and aimed to address the rising wave of terrorist attacks and insecurity in the region. The forum was expected to chart a collective security strategy, with leading traditional rulers invited to participate and support coordinated efforts. Meanwhile, Northwest governors are engaging with the Senate Committee on Security, focusing on improving collaboration between state governments and federal security agencies, boosting intelligence sharing and speeding up responses to banditry and terrorism. Following the gaps in environmental management across the country, citizens have been tasked to take up the responsibility of helping clean up local communities in Abuja, driving a nationwide push to reduce waste pollution and promoting better care for the environment. Participants spoke to newsmen in Abuja during a nationwide cleanup exercise at the Wuse market area of the federal capital, saying that it is part of a broader effort to promote a sustainable, clean and healthy environment for everyday living.
We are enlightening them, letting them know the importance of why they should keep their environment clean and ensure that sustainably the environment will breathe fresh air. Because when the environment is clean, the air is beautiful to breathe. When the environment is toxic, I mean, you and I will get sick.
If we keep on wasting resources, discharging waste into river, doing all sorts of open dumping of waste, our environment will not be safe. There will be risk to our environment, climate risks, pollution, and all that will be a problem to us. So we need this partnership from private individuals, from companies, from stakeholders, so that we join hands together to fight this very cause.
Nigeria's beaches are struggling under the weight of plastic waste and poor disposal habits. But volunteers have stepped out to change that trajectory. In Lagos, environmental advocates and young people converged on the shoreline for a major cleanup aimed at protecting marine life and restoring the coastline. News Central's Victor Mbadike now reports.
For many, the beach is a sanctuary, a place of peace and escape. But mounting plastic bottles, bags, and discarded debris have turned stretches of coastline into dumping grounds, threatening marine life and robbing communities of the clean, natural refuge they once cherished.
Depending on the literature you are looking at, Nigeria generates between 2 to 2.5 million tons of plastic waste annually. Lagos alone contributes about 1 million tons. So you can imagine the impact of that on our environment, aquatic life, drainages. It's just a major crisis.
To fix the problem, volunteers are ready to clean up by picking it up bag by bag.
We are not doing as well as we should with poor power waste management. So you find a situation where a lot of plastics are getting into our oceans, and this can be avoided. We also have a situation where we also allow different kinds of waste beyond plastic to get into these oceans. The cleaning of the oceans is not as consistent as it should be. The required resources are to be made available to ensure that the beaches are pristine are not made available from the different stakeholders.
This is just our own contribution to ensuring that it doesn't snowball into something more catastrophic.
Organizers who are currently on a nationwide cleanup say protecting against waste and plastics is about preserving Mother Nature's playground for future generations.
Government alone cannot solve this problem. This is the time for the private sector and different stakeholders to rise up and be counted to ensure that the environment is healthy, especially our shorelines. And that is why we are here to inspire different organizations, working also with different organizations to say no to plastic pollution, to say no to poor waste management, to also shed light on the profits that can come from getting the plastic back into the economy.
But this gesture will require more hands. Organizers are appealing to stakeholders to take stronger initiatives in protecting Nigeria's beaches.
This cleanup may not solve every challenge facing Nigeria's beaches, but it proves that community action can spark lasting change. And for volunteers here, the hope is that this momentum continues long after the cameras leave. In Lagos, for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
And that's all we have on our breakfast headlines. I am Chiwete Onyema. Breakfast Extra continues.
And welcome back to Breakfast Extra. It's time for us to get on to our second big story, or rather the first for this hour. Now, the president of the country, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has finally sent a major batch of ambassadorial nominees to the Senate nearly 2 years after taking office. Now, these days after the first 3 names are submitted, the president has now forwarded 32 additional nominees. The new list, announced by presidential advisor Bayo Ononuga, includes 15 career diplomats and 17 non-career nominees, featuring notable figures like former INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, former Deputy Governor Femi Pedro and Femi Fani Kayode, as well as Reno Mokri, and also several governors and former governors and senators as well.
Now, these nominees are expected to be posted to key countries such as China, India, the UAE, Canada, and South Africa, as well as multilateral missions like the UN and the African Union. But beyond the names, the timing raises quite a lot of questions. Why did it take this long? And what does this blend of political figures and career diplomats mean for Nigeria's foreign policy direction? Now, to help us break this down, we're joined by Adeni Ikunu as a public affairs analyst, Towo Osoroja as a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, and also Kazim Yusuf as a public affairs analyst as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. I'm going to start off with you, Mr. Kunu. What's your reaction to the president, submitting a full ambassadorial list nearly 2 years after he resumed office?
Thank you very much. It's a knee-jerk reaction to what should have landed on the shoulders of this country because Nigeria is already designated a country of particular concern. I'd like us to understand that one of the most lowest intellection was to have allowed such things that we have to have occurred for 2 years. And if you really check the country's foreign ministry and the nation's policy direction of the past 2 years, it's been absolutely disgraceful, from the intended intervention in places like Niger and Mali to the indiscretion we find when we send somebody to The Hague. It has been consistently a disgrace as far as our international policies are concerned. And these are some of the issues that those of us who speak from the diaspora try to correct when we have such important representations that we should have. I was in New York less than a year ago for something, and I visited the country's consulate. And I know what I saw. I didn't need to write because I can tell you categorically that if the country had an ambassador for the United States of America, certain changes would have been. Also, I was in Atlanta. It's a deliberate. I was in Washington. These moves were deliberate for me to really sample what is the presence and impact of somebody that actually has an ambassador in arguably our biggest partner internationally, the United States of America. Nobody. Now, let us remember that since President Donald Trump promised that he was going to smack the cheeks and butts of this country, Nigeria, the president decided to, after the National Security Advisor visited Washington, D.C. and some other people, they told them, you see, your boss is naked. You don't even have people making conversations with those we are liaising with. So let me tell you for a fact, and it can never be controverted anywhere, that the reason President Tinubu decided to hurriedly push the names he has had for 2 years forward was because the U.S. was going to sanction us. Right now, the 19 countries whose asylum processes, green card processes, visa issues are on hold, included Togo in the west of Africa, included Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria narrowly missed that just because of the announcement of an ambassador to the US, to the UK and France before this. That's a fact. Let anybody in the foreign ministry who is watching me right now come and tell me that that's not a lie. They'll begin to discuss what happened in Washington. Let everybody believe themselves. Because I do not understand why the most populous black country in the world, this nation is accounted for leaders of thoughts and opinions across the world, and a president who doesn't even understand that even for foreign direct investments, you need ambassadors who help consistently liaise with the business community and investors in that country before they decide to channel money into the country. So it's an administration that is full of poorly intellectual people. And I'm saying it here because that's a fact of the matter. For others to have a say, I need to say this, those lists you see was because the US almost included us on the list of the people that will be disgraced, and because many of them have their family in the US that I'm talking from. That's the reason they quickly did what they have to do. So that's what I want to say. I don't like when things rub off from this country negatively. My apologies, I'm getting very passionate about this conversation. I'm sorry.
And we see the passion, hence why we're going to, move this swiftly along, right? Let's talk about the list itself, the ambassadorial list itself. There are characters or individuals on the list that have raised eyebrows, and pressure groups, civic society, plus the PDP have said that the list is quote unquote unserious. Let me come to you, too. What do you make of the list?
Well, my opinion regarding the list, the first question that should be answered is, what are Nigerian foreign policy? So, like the first speaker highlighted, you discover that Nigeria as a country, I'll tell you as a matter of fact, and I've taken time since the administration of President Tinubu to see what our foreign policies are. And if that area is not answered correctly, so we don't need to worry about the list that makes up the ambassadorial. We don't need to question the people that make up the list. Let me clarify something. Even in America, in US, and in all the developed countries, we have the career ambassadors and we have the non-career ambassadors. But those are picked based on the foreign policy of the country, their interests and their international relation. So non-career ambassadors are made up of people of particular skills, experts in areas. And I'll tell you, as a matter of fact, Nigeria as a country and the most populous black nation, I think one of the things that was shaping our foreign policy, which will drive the relationship of Nigeria with other countries in line with the list, or in line with the people that we appoint to represent Nigeria in the international community, should be issue of insecurity. What is our foreign policy that has to do with security? What's our foreign policy that has to do with political stability, particularly in the regional topography? Now you could see that there are coups here and there and all those stuff. There's political instability. What is our foreign policy in poverty eradication? So outside the career ambassadorial list, the non-career, which are basically influenced by political loyalty, should be able to address this area. They should be experts in this area. But trust me, I have no reason to question the list when, as a matter of fact, the president or this current administration has not clearly stated what our foreign policies are. And you also understand that some of the things that the president jets out to go and do, those are things ambassadors ought to have been doing. Those are things, some of the things our governors goes to seek foreign investors, those are the things our ambassador ought to be doing. But this can only be done in line with our foreign policy. So if our foreign policies are not right, if our foreign policies are unknown, if our foreign policies are arising as a result of newspaper publication without any direction, I have no reason to question the list. Because if you look at the list is as particularly the non-career ambassador is as good as we have no foreign policy. They should just go there as part of political compensation. That's my view.
Let me come to you, Mr. Yusuf. Now, there were issues raised about how Nigeria cannot necessarily, afford to have ambassadors. There talks about, having to have a high cost, when it comes to having ambassadors, and perhaps that's why we haven't had ambassadors in the last 2 years. Should we be bothered now? Because it's looking like, the president has hurriedly, made the move to have ambassadors. The question is, if the case is that we do not have enough money to, afford to have ambassadors, can we sustain it?
Well, first of all, I don't agree that money was the problem. And the reason is that during the event when the CPC caucus of the APC visited the presidency, the president was telling the CPC caucus that he was trying to make the ambassadorial list, but that he needed to mix and match it to ensure that so many interests were catered for, to competence and political consideration. And that, I think, is the biggest problem. It was not about money, quote unquote, being the problem. Money was, availability of funds was cited as one of the biggest problems that we had initially in 2023 when this administration came in. And even then, we have gone ahead to have the biggest cabinet ever in Nigeria's history that we have currently had. So we have also made so many financial decisions even after that. For example, the infrastructural decisions like the Lagos-Calabar road, road that we are building, the Sokoto-Badagry road that we are building, and so many other decisions that we have made. So I really do not believe that finance or funds is the reason as much as the politics being played, which I really cite as the biggest problem. The presidency also, early during this administration, for example, sacked the Governing Council of Universities, and then it only took ASU threatening to go on strike if those boards were not reconstituted months after they were sacked, before the government now was forced to then reconstitute governing councils of some of these universities. And it's almost the same thing, the same pattern that has occurred here. Nigeria did not have an ambassador in UAE, even though we had a diplomatic dispute that was transcending from the Buhari days with the UAE and the whole airline issue up to this administration, even though the presidency visited UAE. But for follow-up discussions because we didn't have like an ambassador there, we have not really made good steps going forward in trying to douse all that tension and getting diplomatic relations flowing back again between us and UAE. This was way back. Even when the United States tried to get Nigeria to have the
We seem to have lost Kazim there. Whilst we try to reconnect connection with him, let me quickly bring you, Mr. Kunu, back on here and look at the list, right? Let's look at the list. The new list of 32 nominees, plus the 3 earlier names that were mentioned. There's a balance between career diplomats and political appointees. So how would you assess the balance that we're looking at on this list? Kunu.
All right. I know that the world over, anybody who assumes office will ordinarily and normally want to compensate those that have worked hard with him or her, especially when it comes to choosing who heads the country's consulate or who actually is named an ambassador. If you look at the U.S. Defense Secretary, Mr. Hexet, part of why he assumed that position was because he has served, according to how they put it, in Iraq, but we say Iraq. He's also served in certain capacity as a military officer, and amongst many other things, even if it wasn't like a 5-star or 4-star general, the office he occupies actually is a reflection of certain capacity he has. The same way the second speaker on your show said when he was talking about non-career ambassadors and the role they occupy. You see, ambassadorial positions are serious positions because it reflects the people who speak on behalf of the president of the country. It's a serious business, regardless of if somebody is being faithful to occupy the office or not. So I was expecting that people like Reno Omokri, who evidently has been speaking in favor of this administration, especially the recent issue of insecurity and how that has been concretely disputed, and you have his name on that list, such a name would definitely engender the kind of reaction we find. If you also look at Ifani Kayode, we know that he was once an aviation minister, and he has to give him his roses, certain capacities in certain areas where people are concerned. Also, Professor Yakub Mahmood, for me as a person, I wouldn't want to go the way of many others.
Apologies,
people have complained even.
We'll have to just take a pause.
Yes,
we'll have to take a pause on this conversation right now because we need to go on a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues. Welcome back. Still Breakfast Extra. We're having conversations around the ambassadorial list being released finally by President Tinubu after 2 years. We still have our guests with us here Teo, we have Kunu, and we also have Kazim Yusuf as well. Mr. Kunu, you were talking about the ambassadorial list, especially looking at Fani Kayode and Reno Mokri on that list, and also the former INEC chairman. Please kindly continue your analysis, please.
Oh, thank you very much. I was saying that for me, the issue of Professor Mahmoud Yakub is a mixed feeling for me as a person. Yes, whatever INEC promised before the 2023 election was not actually, seen through, especially with the use of the IRF. But some of my friends in the diaspora here, they've talked about the fact that why will he announce the result in the middle of the night? And I told them that's not going to be the first time that our elections will run into the wee hours of the next day, and that they should actually live with it. Yes, the 2023 election wasn't perfect because I was undoubtedly in the thick of that particular thing. But since it didn't work that way, yes, the elections have come and gone. The courts have validated the election of the president. Do citizens have the right to react and not trust the process? Yes, because they're part of it. In fact, the citizens from the crux of the electorate that voted for whatever candidate they voted for. So, but in terms of the capacity of Professor Yakub, away from being the INEC chairperson, I think they have to respect certain capacity that I know he has, because I've read some of his papers even before I became INEC chairman, and I have a very deep understanding of the capacity he has. So I just want Nigerians to know that they have a right to their mixed reactions. But again, if you look at Okeze Ikpeazu, you look at Ifa Ngwanye, you look at the wife of the former governor of Oyo State, the late Ajumobi, it leaves me wondering really that do these people have the requisite capacity? But again, we're still going to dig in deeply, because if you look at the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Ojukwu, you'd understand that while she was off the radar for a while, she just went into serious personal development. And when she was nominated, having been an ambassador before herself, her capacity shone forth and nobody questions the things she was able to do. So I do not want emotions alone to run along the lines of our reaction when we talk about the list of people. Fani Kayode, if you took away Fani Kayode's affinity with the country's politics, you do an assessment of him as an individual and his capacity, Fani Kayode, by all standard, has the cerebral capacity to hold his own as an ambassador in whatever part of the world. Again, I must say that I have my concerns about Reno Mokri because of the mixed things that he has done in the past couple of years. Then if you look at the likes of Ikpeazu and Ngwanye, they remind me of the service chiefs under the late President Muhammadu Buhari, who were gifted ambassadorial positions almost immediately after their superior just left office. Those are the kinds of things that I see when I look at the likes of Ifeanyi Ngwanye. And I think that Femi Pedro himself has distinguished himself in the financial sector. And I know that by virtue of scholarship and learning, he also has a lot of capacity that people perhaps do not know. I have had the privilege of speaking with him one-on-one amongst many other political interviews that I've had in the course of the years. And I found out that he has his onions well put together and he can do things. So I need Nigerians to temper emotions with logic and wisdom and comprehension and do an extra digging about the capacity of the people they do not know as far as that list is concerned. But I do not in any way vindicate the president for its lack of respect for international connection and foreign policy. And this is because for every foreign policy of a country, it also reflects positively or negatively on how the global community countenances your people. And in fact, in certain circles when we have conversations here, it's part of what some countries that do not even have 1/10 of the capacity of Nigerians talk about, that look at this country, despite the number of the population, despite the limitations it has in terms of GDP, there are representations in different parts of the world. So I think that this particular conversation we're having this morning is very germane to the issue of having those who listen for the president in Abuja to start rethinking the postures they take when we talk about what affects Nigerians and the global community, and by extension, the country itself. I'm going to pause now for our friends to also talk and wait for other questions. I appreciate this.
Now,
thank you, please.
To, you are a lawyer, right? So I'm going to come, and want you to critically look at the Senate, right? Mr. Kano here has just talked about names on that list that will raise eyebrows, and then some that we should give them a benefit of a doubt. But this list falls to the Senate to do their proper screening and investigations, right, before they can be fully confirmed as diplomats. There's going to be, or the envoy that would represent Nigeria. But we've also seen the precedents that the Senate have set, whether in confirming the new INEC chairman or with the screening of the service chiefs. I mean, at this point, they just roll out their names and do as it's bid by the president. As this list is going on, do you think that giving Mr. Kano's recommendations, that they will be properly screened and questions will be asked and investigations will be done, given the severity of what they're about to do for the country? To.
If you look at the Constitution, let's look at the language of the Constitution. It does not talk about clearly the word screening. It talks about confirmation, which we are referring to Section 140, Section 174, subsection 4 of the Constitution gives the Senate the power to confirm the nomination. The process it is now, because for screening has been done for those names to be made public. Those screening has to do with the security checks and every other thing, character-wise and every other stuff. But you agree with me, is based on the information passed across to the Senate that will not be the level of their confirmation. A good example, someone like Fani Kalde that was just mentioned now, if we have record in Nigeria, their level on allegation of domestic violence against him, and in every developed country, someone of that record, except allegation, someone of such an allegation alone cannot stand in such a position to represent Nigeria internationally. So that is within the public domain. You look at, I don't want to mention it because when you mention the name, it's like I told you, the policy determines the quality of people we present or we push out to go and represent us. So it's left for the Senate now to confirm. And whether they can reject or not is still within the exchequer responsibility of the Senate to say, okay, well, based on our own findings and based on, because now Nigerians are not aware of the security report against them. Nigerians are not aware of the characters. Nigerians are not aware of the security report against them. Nigerians are aware of some of their characters in terms of the way they manage themselves in public, the way they talk in public, their double standard nature and every other stuff. So these are issues that need to be looked on, that need to be looked into. So it's left for the Senate now to look at that provision of the Constitution to say, okay, the confirmation, if they will confirm or not. But I know over time, the Senate in one way or the other have expressed that desire to go the other way when it comes to some certain kind of people. And in most cases, you see the person who the Senate decide to go against, we say is because of the body language of the president or who earlier sent his or her nomination to the Senate. So it's just a means of disgracing them. But if the independence of the Senate is clearly to be respected, I think some of those names need not to pass through that stages of confirmation. In my opinion, maybe by Monday the president will make clear his policy statement, and maybe that will guide the Senate in terms of the confirmation of some of the nominees.
Right. Only time will tell.
Absolutely. Let me come to you now, Mr. Yusuf. Now, the presidency has said that, this envoys will be deployed to strategic countries like China, India, Canada, South Africa, and global bodies like the UN and the AU. How critical are these postings for Nigeria at the moment?
Thank you. They are extremely critical. And as I said earlier, it's surprising that it took this long before we started posting ambassadors to countries like Canada, like US, like the UK or other places. These are countries that, by virtue of the Nigerian diaspora, we have huge diaspora communities in these countries. We have big trade relations with these countries. There's so much going on between those countries and Nigeria. And then if we don't have diplomatic relationships, for example, with a country like India, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was here this year, if I'm correct, to Nigeria. And all the FDIs that the country was trying to push and those kind of investments was trying to push would not have clearly have moved forward because we do not have an ambassador in these countries to help us push these discussions and then get them to go towards the finish line. For countries like Canada, for example, with the massive diaspora population that we have there, it is strange that we don't have an ambassador in that country till date to help us push those kind of, to help us push engagement with the Canadian government with regards to Nigerians in those countries and their interests. And it's actually just good now that we are having the ambassadorial list there. And one hopes that this government doesn't have this kind of lapse because it's actually, how do you describe it? It's actually like a dip in what should be their job to do on time. So those countries are key, being that we have huge diaspora populations there, being that we have huge trade relations with those countries. Many of them are our allies, and it's a fall in our responsibility as a government or this country's government that we didn't have ambassadors there on time.
There's a matter of continuity, right? 2 years, our home front, our diplomatic front has been left empty. And we know how, even with our own transitions from one administration to another, they have failed to consolidate on past administrations' plans or, strategy. What would, the future look like in terms of diplomacy and continuity of our diplomatic policy for Nigeria with this appointment? Let me start with you, Kano.
All right, I need to say this, that, and I need us to remember that under the Buhari administration, an 80-plus-year-old man was actually given the opportunity to be Nigeria's ambassador to the United States of America. The Nigerian ambassador here, I'm trying to remember his name, but it was from Imo State, such that even when he appeared before the Senate and they were asking him things that has to do with the digital technology, ICT, and the man was saying, no, he doesn't know, they shouldn't ask him questions about that. Now, it ridicules whatever it is that we want to do, because I need to say this. International diplomacy and global best practices are entrenched by the capacity or otherwise of the person that represents you in ambassadorial capacity in any part of the world. And the business of being an ambassador or a consular general anywhere is a very serious business, and you permit my re-emphasis of this. And that is why I'm going to also fault that list on the grounds that you cannot always want to send a list and you do not have the names of these countries attached. Now, I expect a level of rigor in even assuming the position of an ambassador, because you are the president in that country and you are a reflection of your country's capacity and relationship and essentially your country's social capital or social fabric. So going forward, and I'm hoping that the people who take office or the person who takes office in the next election, if it has to be this same president or another president, should know that some of us are requesting that when you send names, send the country that you are intending to send this person to, so that that person can be grilled for at least 30 minutes to demonstrate that he or she understands the nature of the country where the person is going to and certain levels of expectations. So I have to say that it's not something that I'm fully satisfied with, especially coming 2 years after. I think when the recording was in March of 2023, and now this is November of 2025. So it's been over 2 years. So I'm hoping sincerely that these people, when their respective countries of assignment are eventually mentioned, they will get their feet running to ensure that they clear the mess. In the course of time, it was even found out that because there's no ambassador in Germany, I'm very correct about that, that they had issue with funding. Now, let me tell you one more thing before I allow the floor for my friends. This country has its passport offices in its respective consular offices in New York, in Washington, and in Atlanta. If I did a comparison of the Nigerian community in Houston, Houston is where you have the largest number of Nigerians. If you come to Texas, followed by Dallas, I can tell you the numbers outweigh those persons that are in Washington, and yet Nigeria doesn't have a consular office here in Texas. If you come to a place like Illinois and Chicago, I need to tell you that it was only about 3 months ago that the people who were intending to go to a place like New York to be captured for their international passport, they had to send some kind of representative and give date for some people to come to Chicago to give them their snapshot. You see, the presence of an ambassador coordinates this kind of thing. This is the list of what the people that are from other countries handle. I'm privileged by God to have seen and experienced how some of these things are done in other areas of the world. And that is why I've been speaking so passionately that this is not for lack of capacity or finance as a country, but the reality of the retrogressive and stagnative sensibilities and sensitiveness to issues that affect us. And that is why, for those of us who are privileged to be on this platform, I'm grateful that we're speaking truth to power about the need for this country to have a policy direction, like my lawyer friend has been speaking, and the kind of intellection that's been demonstrated by the other caller, the other person here, regarding how this country goes forward. So going forward, this country must define by the presence of this ambassador where we are headed. Immediately get to that country, the assignments are many. Number one, the public image of this country has been affected, especially with the recurrent killings that have been so publicized by the terrorists in this country. It means foreign direct investment to the entire north is destroyed. That won't happen. Then secondly, what about the image of our country? What about those of us that have certain relationship with certain institutions here in a place like America and how they see us? These things are important. I allow my friends to also add to this. Thank you.
Right. Let's and then as well as Kazim, if you are going to add very quickly, so that we can go on to the next question. Do you have any comments to add to what Kunu said?
Yeah, my only comment is the fact that just like Nigeria, every Nigerian in Nigeria that becomes a government of its own, you provide everything for yourself. The only thing that you don't do is the fact that you are not licensed to carry a gun. So likewise, Nigerians in overseas, because of as a matter of fact, and I'll tell you, ask any Nigeria if they feel the impact of any ambassador in their country. I think the last time Nigeria felt this diplomatic touch or diplomatic influence or connection is the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Outside that particular period of administration, down to this point in time, I don't think our ambassadors or the ambassadorial office the impact is felt internationally. And 2 years down the line, you could see if that is felt before, Nigerians overseas would have been agitating for it. But just because nobody cares and they don't even know their role, that is why you see 2 years down the line, Nigerians in overseas never even felt, they don't have an ambassador. And I think the only thing we could see, and most times I've heard, and when I have discussions with my friends from the other parts of the world, is the fact that our presidents or our ambassadors or our officials who go overseas just go there to snap pictures with other presidents who they see as celebrity. And I think that is one of the things our ambassadors are made up of. So that's why the impact is not felt. And I don't think there will be any changes based on the current body language of the administration. And based on some of, I think I followed some of the tweets of some of the nominees on X, popularly known as X. You could see the level of the intellectual. And you could see that some of them are just coming and seeing that particular position as a means of compensation of being a political loyalist rather than know what they ought to do.
And Mr. Kazim, do you want to also add as well to that, just so we can move on?
Yeah. I'll say right off the bat, I agree with Mr. Adeniyi that most of the non-carrier ambassadors are mainly for political compensations. Now, even then, when you have them, we as a country have to be able to have a list of KPIs for these ambassadors, even if we are compensating them politically. One is to help ease the movement of Nigerians into some of these countries. For example, right now we have around 42, 47 countries that Nigerians can enter visa-free. If we have a policy or a mandate for many of these ambassadors to help us lobby to get more countries available for Nigerians to be able to enter visa-free and to be able to ensure that Nigerians can get there easily, maybe 90-day visa-free access or 30-day visa-free access, it will help the country standing. Countries like UAE right now that used to allow Nigerians to be able to walk there easily have hardened visa policies on Nigeria, and that needs to be checked out with the UAE authorities as quickly as possible. Qatar, for example, that used to allow Nigerians to be able to enter for tourism as hardened requirements on Nigerians. We don't have diplomatic presence. We didn't used to have, and I don't think that has been addressed. So those kind of things need to be changed. For countries like the UK, the US, and other ones, we actually need to start engaging the authorities there, the diplomatic service there, and to be able to provide correct consular services for the Nigerians in those diaspora so that they will be able to feel the effect of their consular offices in those countries. That to me is what is important, because it just seems as if we are just working on vibes. There is no real mandate or real issues about what exactly it is that we need to do. Ghana, for example, has been placing restrictions on Nigerian traders in those countries, and we are not actually really doing anything to engage the authorities to ensure that the ECOWAS protocol to allow freedom of movement and people and goods is enforced. And Nigerians who are trading there are able to trade as peacefully as possible, following that country's laws. So there is so much that we have not done, and that our political leaders have not done. Even when they want to settle themselves, there should still be at least a modicum of a mandate, of a national mandate or KPIs that they should be able to meet, even when they get politically compensated for these roles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me come to you. Let me come back to you now, Mr. Kunu. I know there are a lot of things that you talked about that the ministers, the ambassadors now, envoys should focus on. But what would you say is the most important? What would you say is important when it comes to priorities now for these ambassadors?
Well, I think that they've got to clear the audience table. It's obvious that in the absence of an ambassador, forget about whoever is acting in capacity, more or less like a representation of the ambassador. It's a fact of the matter that that person cannot fully give what is expected, because you occupy an office in more or less like a deputizing or in temporary capacity. You can't give a direction that is followed because you do not have the said authority to do that. In the first place, I know that for every ambassador that assumes a particular office in a new country, there are always notes prepared to understand where they are and how certain things have been, and also some of the things that the countries where they are have been expecting. Let me say, for instance, our friend, the person that just spoke, talked about Ghana. Ghana, for instance, has always had certain policies that foreigners, apart from Nigerians, cannot do certain businesses. Every country in the world practices what is called protectionism, because they've got to keep certain areas of their economy for their own people. For those of you who do not know, Nigeria has a policy, for instance, that we cannot import candle and we cannot import toothpicks, among many other things that they will not even give you foreign exchange for if you want to import them. But we still find these things that are important on the market, because this is it. There is a policy area and there is an implementation area. So for the ambassadors that are going into this country, the first thing is to understand what are the trade opportunities and what are the trade restrictions. Because the reason why you have ambassadors is to ensure that your country has an opening that allows for what I call a symbiotic business relationship, a symbiotic diplomatic relationship, amongst many other perks that is associated with having healthy diplomatic relationship with countries. So if you move away from there and you come to a place like the United Arab Emirates, let me buttress what I've first said. The reason why the country's relationship with the United Arab Emirates is so frosty is simply because Nigeria did that country wrong. And what's it? You bring foreign currency into this country to do businesses. There are investors from your country who give you this money in hard currencies of the world. You come into Nigeria and you want to repatriate the funds because after all, you brought your money to do businesses, you've paid your taxes, and this country tells you that you cannot repatriate your foreign currency despite the fact that you have paid the taxes expected of you and the remaining money belongs to you as a country, as a foreign entity. That is in part, and I have to say, essentially why the UAE made the travel policies even harder for Nigerians right now, and many other countries are doing so. Do you know that it is part of the lack of foreign ambassador that caused the United Kingdom, especially Mr. Kristama, to make things pretty difficult for Nigerians following the policies of the United States of America? And the picture is this thing also goes as far as Australia, it gets to New Zealand, and also South Africa. In the period where we do not have an ambassador, Ghana has allowed, South Africa, as we speak, has allowed Ghanaians to come into their country visa-free. Why? There's a level of understanding. And let me tell you also the policy here. South Africa, when they're talking about the African free trade, the African free trade agreement and all of that, South Africa was able to present somebody that eventually emerged as the first person to lead that group. And that's because from ambassadorial presence to policy connection to important global proper fabric, that's what it's been doing. Now for Nigeria, in the absence of ambassadors to these key countries that we have strategic relationship with, there is no way they're going to take us serious, because anytime they have meetings, it is only a delegation of one or two that are not even attained to the status of people that are actually representing the country that do that. So I'm simply saying here that the first assignment is to clear the mess that has been existing in the absence of those. And let me also tell you this, some of the issues we raised when they recalled those ambassadors was that, some of these ambassadors were in the middle of strategic signatures to the things that should have benefited this great country, Nigeria. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his Solomonic toga, caught them in the middle and messed everything up. So there's a lot of things that they have to start with, reorganize the respective consular offices at the respective places. Right. Ambassadors should now look at what were the things left incomplete before the takeover. And I think that that's a way to begin, amongst many other things. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Very quickly, in 30 seconds, I'm going to give you, Kazim and To, your final remarks as we close this up. One issue, one thing that you think either the Senate should not overlook, and then for Kazim, one thing that you think, at the security end is not to be overlooked. Very quickly, 30 seconds.
Okay, let me go first. The issue is the fact that let's identify our foreign policy on economic and security. And I think it's an issue the nominees, if confirmed by the Senate, should actually look at, because the economic policy of every nation determines the level of growth and GDP of that country. Then too, the security policy of that nation also determines the level of trust for investors to come in, and also how their citizens are treated abroad. So if these two issues are clearly spelled out, if it's part of the foreign policy of President Muhammadu Buhari, President Tinubu, I think what the nominees should be concentrating on are these two key areas. Right. And if they address these two key areas, I think Nigeria will become will be the great country we all look forward to.
And we desire for Kazim, your final thoughts, 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah. So, number one, as I always I've been saying, the country has to hammer what the last speaker said, what the foreign policy is. There are so many lapses currently in Nigeria's current foreign policy that needs to be addressed. There are so many, we have so many countries that have lapses with us, and just because we don't have ambassadors that are treating these issues, they have lagged and affected Nigerians in those countries negatively, and has affected Nigeria as a country too, also negatively. So that also needs to be addressed. They also need to have a way of harmonizing those foreign policies to also match our current local economic and security policies to ensure that we engage those countries that we think we need security guarantee or security help for, and to also help us extend our frontiers for businesses that Nigerians would want to do in those countries, and for investments that we need to pull in from those countries into the country. And so those are what the key things that those ambassadors actually need to really focus on.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Adeni Kano, public affairs analyst and international journalist. We have To Osaroje, who's a legal practitioner, joining us all the way from UK, and Kazim as well, who joined us as well virtually. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. I just want to get Kazim. Kazim Yusuf is a public affairs analyst. Thank you. As we go into the new week, we see what the list will be. Will they be confirmed? Only time will tell. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll switch to politics, as El-Rufai and Atiku are now bona fide members of the ADC. After the break, stay with us. Hey, welcome back. It's time for us to get on to politics, as the race to 2027 may have just shifted again. Two major political heavyweights, Atiku Abubakar and Nasir El-Rufai, have officially joined the African Democratic Congress ADC, sending ripples across Nigeria's political landscape. Atiku's move was confirmed just days ago, and now Nasir El-Rufai has obtained his ADC membership card. The defections raise critical or crucial questions, one of them which is, what do these moves mean for existing parties? What prospects do they offer for these leaders? And can ADC suddenly emerge as a serious alternative ahead of 2027?
Now, with these realignments, we're looking at new alliances, shifting loyalties, and fresh tensions, all just as the countdown to the next general election begins. Today's developments could reshape the balance of power in ways many didn't expect. Now, we'll unpack the possible political implications. We can analyze how this might affect their individual chances and explore what ADC stands to gain or risk as it welcomes these big-name defections. Now, to help us unpack the political implications, we're joined by Sam Amadi, who's the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you so much, Mr. Amadi, for joining us.
Dr. Amadi, many thanks. I appreciate you for coming on. And let me just start with your overall assessment of Atiku Abubakar and Nasir El-Rufai joining the ADC at this stage, just ahead of the 2027 election cycle. Bona fide members, is this a good or bad move?
Well, for them it's good, for the coalition good as well. Okay, first, it's not much of a major surprise that Atiku Abubakar or El-Rufai would join. I mean, the Atiku Abubakar at the first unveiling of the ADC, these petitions were there, they founded, and they are part of the perhaps 6 or 7 pillars of APC. So it was a matter of time when Atiku would turn in his official membership of ADC, because many people believe perhaps it's the most influential founder of that coalition, and one that some think could be the presumptive nominee for the presidential candidate of the party. El-Rufai himself has been there from the beginning, has been passionate about the need to bring people together to defeat Tinubu. Maybe he has a lot to lose personally, politically, if Tinubu wins a second term. And also, him and Peter Obi got special waiver to delay their formal entry into the coalition until they get done with some, small political business of by-elections and the number of elections. So it was set that at a point now, Atiku coming. Now, it means a couple of things. One is that it's not clear that ADC is going to have, there's going to be no intensity around ADC. I mean, in line with what may be the new electoral calendar, you expect the new political work to start now, with issues around who is the nomination, convention, congresses, and all that. So I think Abubakar and Nasir El-Rufai enter the race or enter the party formally at a time that you're going to be seeing heavy political lifting, at a time that you're going to see reconfiguration of the party in terms of what each person brings in and what each person takes. This is a coalition, and you expect there are going to be a lot of internal squabbling around position. Who guess what? So this is the right time now. So we expect the drama to now unfold in a bigger theater. This is real 2027 now on the mark.
Dr. Madi, you said the drama is a good time for drama to start to unfold. But how significant is this move for the ADC as a party? I mean, could this defections transform it into a major political force?
Well, I think with the political landscape today, ADC is bound to be a major, whether you're sure whether effective, but a major political force to unseat the ruling APC. This formalized entry, because these guys are, for all you know, part of this coalition. So this formalization of their entry, now clears the doubt as to what we should expect. Now we know that Abubakar is determined now to be part of this coalition formally, would fight perhaps to get a presidential ticket, and would now, be set out to do a lot of formations, proper protocol, meetings and actions to deepen the hold of that party in the north. So, so first, we're going to see a contest around the north because APC also is throwing in a lot of chestnuts into the northern political fire. They need to win the north. ADC is built its strength, it looks like, from the north as well. So this now pitches them. So we know the effective, a couple of things will show that. One is, we know that there is inbuilt political lethargy in the Nigerian populace right now. I mean, Tinubu, APC's 10 years, when we are judged failure, does not necessarily translate to a vote for ADC or any coalition. The coalition has to be put together properly. The coalition has to bring a candidate that can inspire an alternative hope that, just like right in 2015, and it looks like everything is set for a repeat. You now have, if you like, a mega coalition, even though at that time the APC was a formal merger of a sort of existing parties, namely the Tinubu's party, Buhari's party, a rump of APC led by Atiku Abubakar and Mechi, and a very small also rump of Abgar led by Okorocha. So these were a merger. What we are seeing now is not as a merger as we saw in 2014, but a coalition of, you can say, APC, both Atiku Abubakar, both El-Rufai, both Arebe Shola, Malami, and a couple of other not too heavyweight politicians are part of APC, but they are not official. We're not seeing the APC officially merge. We can talk about PDP. Atiku Abubakar leads a couple of people from PDP to APC. So, in a sense, it's a simulation, if you like, a pseudo type of what happened in 2015. Again, we've seen a government being, perceived as not performing. Look at the insecurity. Look at almost like deja vu of the kidnappings and all that. So we are building up to a similar situation in 2015. But what now left to get done, and we know we're in for a real fight, is to have a political president as a candidate, perhaps, who embodied that populism, that mass appeal that Buhari had before coming to power. I mean, especially in the north, it was perceived as this the guy who can get it. So if you get that setting, and how these politicians agree to work together like they did in 2014, when they gave Buhari that ticket and all stay together to work for him, if they can have that kind of unity of purpose, and bring up a candidate who satisfies both the zoning. Again, the voting against Jonathan was northern time, not the right of the north, time of the north, zoning. If they do the same playbook, then it's possible in my book that this agency could actually unseat Tinubu in spite of some kind of state capture, some kind of weak institutions. But I guess the government suffers huge credibility with the populace, and that translates to vote. If fair, we have the same fair election we had under Jonathan. Second, we have the same type of candidate who can ignite confidence and acceptance and appeal of the people. And thirdly, if these individuals will support such a candidate, rally around and deliver.
But do they have the mass appeal? I mean, El-Rufai and Atiku, do they have the substance or the pizzazz that is required to get that wave of what we saw in 2015? What would it take? Do they have it, ADC?
At the moment, the only person that really has, they don't have, El-Rufai doesn't have mass appeal that cuts across the same way Buhari had. In the north, look, he probably is posturing to be the successor to Buhari in the north. He has some credits, significant, with some northern youths. He's very strong in terms of vocalization. He's eloquent. He's also frantic, and intense. So you're going to have a fight with him. It's going to be everywhere. He's courageous. He's able to also be dastard in his action. So a bit of Tinubu will have some kind of match in him in terms of that level of intensity, ferocity, and maybe resort to dark arts like the APC used to do. So that's a plus for him. And again, some youths can, the kind of things he says and the body appeal to some of the northern youths strongly, who are looking for a smart, strong guy who can maybe counterpose to the south. Okay, so he passes that, but he doesn't have that credibility that Buhari had until he unraveled as a president. Atiku Abubakar, one could even say, perhaps does not have that at all. I mean, he's a very large political figure with a lot of credits here and there, with a consistent team, but he doesn't resonate with the people who constitute the voting population as such. So he needs to ride on a smart, strong platform to get it done. Amechi, who is also part of this team, doesn't have that appeal at all. I mean, it could have ferocity, intensity, and some degree of recklessness that you need in politics, in Nigerian type of politics. But mass appeal, I will not. I think it's only P2B who has that mass appeal. But the problem then is he also has some weakness that has to be remedied by the combination of this. So that's why their solution lies in picking the candidate who has a mass appeal, because that's really what you need to have a bounce. Look, Tinubu occupies, perfects the conventional politics. You can see the defections, you can see the deal making, you can see the appointment of ambassadors. I heard you guys talk about it. It shows a guy whose eyes on political deal making, So you're not going to beat him by trying to occupy that space of conventional politics. You're going to beat him if you can rally, inspire, sustain that inspiration in spite of state capture, coercion, violence, and bribery and seduction. Get Nigerians to say, you know what? We are moving to a different alternative. And Mr. A or B offers that alternative. If we can create that revolutionary moment where people say, you know what, we are done, and they're not getting enticed or seduced or coerced, then you're not going to beat a war machine that embodies everything, negative but effective about politics in the third world.
Dr. Madi, how important is zoning going to be for the ADC in the forthcoming election?
Well, ADC is trying to avoid that question. And I think it's a lame, it's actually self-defeating. Some of the ADC members are saying, you know what, the key issue is to get people out. And then we care about just who can fix this country. Unfortunately for them, most of the leaders are persons who have been in government. So there's really no, oh my God, let's try this guy. Sometimes in politics, a fresh guy who has no baggage, it can be more inspiring. He comes here, do like Zamdani's kind of, build up all kinds of wishy word, great idea, going to change the moon and change the star and so on. That could be good narrative, and people will say maybe it can be become. But once you're there, tested, tried, you are now on your pedigree, not on any idealistic or any purpose. So the problem with these guys is that they can't tell Nigeria. So if they think that they can override the zoning consciousness with a very dry and pedestrian argument around competence, it will fail woefully. Or the notion that the biggest elephant in the room is getting at yes, I think it's time to truncate APC in Nigeria to give us a fresh list. But two things can go together. Nigerians also say, no, we don't want to go into this cycle of replacing Jonathan, who in hindsight did far better than you guys, and then bringing something that will now be just like Buhari, sending us 40 years back. So the key questions are two here. First is zoning. They not remove Jonathan because it was not on time and Jonathan reneged on that commitment. We voted for Tinubu, El-Rufai, everybody argued for Tinubu because it was Southern time. And so you can't come back now and make an argument that is really believable, that suddenly it's no longer the time of the SAP. So the zoning will play big in the outcome of this election. And the next thing that will play big is credibility. Nigeria is going through a lot, and as politicians, a class have low rating generally in this country now. And so you need to have large turnout to defeat it, because vote buying is the next bus stop in the electoral malpractices landscape in Nigeria. It's difficult now to write fake results, except you have a large-scale compromise of INEC. And with what Mahmoud did in the last election, of course, has been rewarded handsomely with ambassadorial position. I don't see INEC going that way again. So there's going to be a measure of institutional integrity. And so rigging now might fall back to buying votes. And to make economic sense, you just have to have low turnout. So the candidate that the ADC needs to have capacity to rally the troops, everybody come out, motivated to vote and stay there and do all kinds of mandate protection activities. And that means at the minimum, you're going to inspire people and keep that inspiration at a very high level that's higher than the rate of demoralization that Tinubu and the government will bring. So to do that, minimum, a candidate that people can trust, one, the candidate that people have hope about, that they can get things done. And so if you don't have that, and zoning is now an emotive issue. You can't have Buhari finish and then it's certain time and they have Tinubu do 4 years that is lackluster, that's not competent, that's incompetent and bad. People will say, okay, fine, give South another 4 years to finish their job. And that probably is Tinubu's greatest argument southward in 2027. And if ADC does not do like PDP and deal with that crisis and sweep it away, they will lose the election to Tinubu in 2027.
As we look at 2027 from a political strategic standpoint, you've already reeled out a lot of strategy for them, and hopefully, they are watching, right? But there's also the figure of, the person of Mr. Peter Obi, who is also part of the coalition, but also says he's a member of the Labour Party. Now we have Atiku, now we have El-Rufai, there's also Amechi. Heading into 2027 and the issue of zoning, what will be their strategy? What do you perceive or preempt their strategy will be to clinch a chance at anything at all, or even advance the party forward after 2027?
Okay, two issues here. One is Mr. Peter Obi, for what El-Rufai said, should he now make a decision, because according to El-Rufai, they were given up until now to decide to formally enter. And so far, Mr. Peter Obi has not formally renounced his membership of Labour Party and formally entered into the ADC. So as a party, he is there as a coalition. So that decision in the weeks to come, maybe next week and before Christmas, we hope to have a definitive position on that. Is Mr. Peter Obi in or out? I think that's important. Second is the other issue is that it seems that, from the language, there's a sense in which the members of the coalition want Mr. Peter Obi in. I mean, it would be foolhardy to think it's such a great resource. Whether you think you win or can win presidency is a different matter, but at least you concede that, like Farisha said, that this is the guy who perhaps represents the opposition more than any other person in terms of votes in the lock. But so one thing, but at the same time, it looks like a couple of them perhaps doesn't want him at the tip of the ticket, maybe somewhere under the ticket. For whatever reason, some would say maybe questions of personality, questions of compatibility, questions also about the Igbo question, the vexed Igbo question all the time in this country. So how APC grapple with these contending issues? The fact that they need him, and the fact that perhaps some people want to concede to him is a challenge they will deal with, that will define their pathway to victory or defeat in 2027. And the third issue is the idea of primary. I've spoken to some of the leaders, and they are very strong on the view that, of course, it's difficult to a party of such ego. Atiku is a guy who is committed to running for presidency, perhaps ad infinitum, until he can no longer run. And Amici is a guy who is confident of himself and thinks, if you have been a chairman of a speaker for 8 years, chairman of speakers forum, chairman of governors forum, governor for 8 years, minister for 8 years. What the heck? You're only thinking that you are the guy for the presidency because, look, you've got every of these gravitas and bona fides to be president. So Mechi continues to think, I'm the guy who should be there. But maybe the first don't say that. But again, if you are in this, of course, Abubakar, El-Rufai might not want to be president now, but wants to be somewhere close to hitting where he can strike in 2031. So a lot of ego, a lot of desire, ambition at play here. Would they cede to an Peter Obi who appears the best candidate to revive and stimulate the base and spread some populism that they can build on? Is just going to be the issue. And they talk about primary, and Peter Obi's body language suggests he's only for the Nigerian kind of primary. And the APC founders said, we're going to have a free and fair primary. But the history of political primaries in Nigeria is that he has own strategies that do not necessarily equate to the strategy for good governance. So the guy who is not going to be the best guy for the candidate might win the primary. I've been in a couple of primaries myself, so I know that primaries in Nigeria do not test the winnability, who wins the election ultimately. So except the leaders themselves make that decision and build a primary to get and to take Buhari in 2014. Buhari, without Tinubu, without these guys coming together to prop him up, wouldn't have won. Even at that, it was a close race with Kwakwaso and Atiku. I think Kwakwaso came second or thereabout. It wasn't like a wipeout. So Tinubu then had to weigh in and say, look, this is the guy who can deliver for us, and we'll get him on the ticket by all means. He left to Buhari, would have lost that primary. And so that is the challenge that ADC has to face the days to come. First, what do we do with Peter Obi? Second, how do we deal with zoning? And thirdly, what kind of primary do we want? And do we really need to kind of coronate a candidate before primary? Or do we leave it to the vagaries of primary contest and take whatever we have and do the best we can? So these are top-level decisions they have to make down the road.
There's lots of ambitious individuals in there. One of them is Atiku Abubakar. Others, critics will argue that he was the undoing of the PDP. Will his ambition become the PDP, the undoing of the ADC before it's even started? Only time will tell, sir.
Yeah, only time will tell. But the history shows that he is dogged about running. Perhaps he has made a lot of errors in terms of the past. Perhaps people say if I was supported to Jonathan, maybe he would have taken over. If we can't come under Buhari, under Basanjo, he would have been the president. So there are many if counterfactual. But what is true now is that his ambition rests on his supposition, two suppositions. One, that the North is going to vote for another candidate, and that's enough to win, and he's going to be that candidate. I think that Tinubu, as usual, will do very well in the North. I'm convinced about that for three reasons. One, I think so for some people, religion is what counts. They don't know. Maybe Tinubu is a Muslim, still a Muslim. They vote for him. Secondly, money, big wigs are going to swing him, and political appointments and patronage. And if you have a traditional society that's prone to patron-client relationship, those patrons will bring out the clients. And so it's going to be, he may not win a lot, but he's going to do well. And so the Atiku, one pillar of Atiku's presidency is not that strong. And the second pillar, maybe that if he's a better candidate, these other coalition members can come together and help run the troop in the South. I don't see that happening. If the South is on that ticket, the bulk of sentiment is going to go to Tinubu in the South because of the idea of, look, this is just, if you got Jonathan off because he didn't respect Zone, then you can't respect Zone yourself. So in my sense, it doesn't look like a very, very winnable proposition against Tinubu.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's not politics. It could make it work. It can spare the segment with politics.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, for, of course, sharing your insights with us as we've been discussing the implications of Atiku Abubakar and El-Rufai joining the ADC. Of course, so keep our fingers crossed and see what happens to the Nigerian political landscape come 2027.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we come back, we have our final segment to wrap up this weekend's installment of Breakfast Extra. Stay with us, don't go anywhere.
You're watching Breakfast Extra. It's time for us to focus on Africa. Now, our next story takes us to Guinea-Bissau, where a military takeover has sparked international condemnation. As a matter of fact, the Economic Community of West African States and the African Union have both denounced the coup and called for the immediate restoration of constitutional order. Now, Nigeria has joined other African nations in condemning the takeover, emphasizing that the will of the people must be respected and that military interventions undermine democratic governance.
Now, this development raises serious questions about the state of democracy in parts of Africa, especially Western Africa, and the challenges faced in ensuring stable governance across the continent. And so to discuss this further, including the regional and international implications of this, we're joined by Barrister Amadou Tidani Bari. He's a monitoring and evaluation officer, the European Center for Electoral Support in Guinea-Bissau. Barrister, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on, and a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start with your perspective on what this coup means for Guinea-Bissau and for the democratic norms in West Africa. Did this coup come as a shock to you, observing the elections and all?
Okay, thank you. This coup, when it occurs, it was surprising for everyone, for the people, for the international community, because the timing when the coup occurred was after the election, because the election was going well, and the population, they voted, because we had over 65% of participation, and the military coup, they waited before 24 hours before the result to conduct their takeover. What that mean? It means it means that the coup didn't happen to prevent the country for collapsing. The coup happened to prevent the people, the Guinea-Bissau people, to have the truth of the votes. So these junta, they conducted the coup to prevent the people to know the result of the election. Everyone were shocked because it is a nightmare scenario for Pisco, because when we analyze it, how can or where a coup happened before the result? What was the emergency for them to intervene in the political landscape to stop the ongoing election?
Now, Barry, as we're talking about, the elections, you are there's a lot of conversation or a lot of rumors, or some observers, international observers, including one of the AU envoys, and that's our former president, Goodluck Jonathan, who has said that the oust president has a finger in this coup, and that the military was working in with his command. I mean, saying that his ally has now been appointed a prime minister in this new junta. And so I do have to ask you, do you think that these allegations are true? Does the oust president have some sort of connection with the coup?
If we look at the reality, not the official statement from the coup perpetrators, we can have this sense of reaction that this coup is different from the other coup that we are seeing in West Africa. In Guinea-Bissau, it is not the first time that the country witnessed a coup, but it is the first time that that the military intervened to stop the election, to stop the National Commission to announce the official election. Here it is the timing. That is the first thing. The first thing. Why did they waited until the 26th? Because they already knew that they have lost the election. It means that they already have the result, and those results are against them. So they knew the result, but they decided what to do to prevent the people to know the result. So they decided to organize a fake coup. That is the first thing. The second thing, how can a sitting president call international media and announcing himself that I am ousted now? That is something surprising. And during the whole day, he was with his phone. He was calling. He was holding press conference. So that was strange. And also, neither President Embelo or a member of his government was arrested. But the only people who were arrested were the opposition candidates and its party members. So, in all these elements, we can say that this is not a coup, it is a fake coup. Like President Jonathan said, it is a ceremonial coup. So all people are surprised, and even in the country, because when we are online with on the social media, we can see that people they are very critical. They are saying that the president, President Embelo, he has a hand in this coup.
Barrister Tijani, of course, you just said it now that you call the coup a ceremonial coup, and I'm just here thinking, based on your suspicion, what do you think is likely to happen next?
What is likely to happen? Already the junta, they have nominated a new prime minister, and they are going to form a new government. But it will depend on the ECOWAS. Now, it will depend on the ECOWAS and the international community. How will they react? Because these people, they have already assessed what they prefer the economic sanctions that the ECOWAS has already put in place against them than to lose their control of the power of the state. It means that they prefer to suffer in a short term economically and put the whole country in a danger economically for them to gain or to maintain their long-run political benefits. Right now, the ECOWAS, what they can do, since they had already observers there, what they can do, they can announce the official result that can put the junta, that can put pressure on the junta so that they will know, even though they have intervened in the political environments, they have stopped the election, but people know the result. People know who is the president-elect, and maybe from that it can put pressure on them to restore the truth of the election.
Barry, you have so much faith in the AU and ECOWAS. I mean, we've seen what's happened to neighboring countries around West Africa and how coups have happened in those countries. I mean, Mali is one of note when it comes to mind. Do you think that the AU or ECOWAS itself, the regional body here, has power to sway the junta and hold democracy firm in the country? Because, I mean, our president had to be evacuated from Senegal, or had to be evacuated from your country and to Senegal, our former president.
You know, the ECOWAS and the European and the international community right now, they are in a dilemma whether to sanction the junta, economic sanctions, but that also will affect the people, because those people, those junta, those military, they have everything. Maybe sanctioning the country will not affect them, but what the international community can do, they can target their personal assets, because they are well known. They can target their personal assets and seize those assets and put sanctions on them. For instance, ban them from traveling. Maybe that can put pressure on them to restore power. Because right now, where we are sending military ECOWAS forces there will not resolve the status quo. Maybe it will worsen it, and it means it will be, and the consequence, the damages will be very severe on people. Since ECOWAS is not here since ECOWAS is here for protecting people, the welfare, the prosperity of people.
Right.
So it will be interesting not to engage force against these junta, because whatever will happen right now, they are ready to face the consequences.
Right.
And they will do everything to control the power. Everything. And like we said, we are witnessing the same thing in Guinea-Conakry. We are witnessing the same thing in Mali, in Burkina Faso. It means these junta, they are learning what happened in other countries, and also they are trying to replicate the same thing in their country. Because when we take the history of Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Bissau has witnessed a lot of coups, and all these coups involve these militaries. And the country has witnessed a lot of presidents who have been ousted or killed. At least I can remember 6 coups since the independence of Guinea-Bissau, and more than 17 attempt coup. It means the military, they have hands in that, and what we can do maybe in the long term is to try to reform, to continue the reform of the security sector.
Right. Very quickly, that security sector reform that you just talked about, it has failed repeatedly. From your perspective, why does it keep failing?
You know, in Guinea-Bissau, we have the security sector, we have the armed forces, we have the elites, and we have a criminal organized group that I can call the narco trafficker. So these 3 groups, they are leading against people because they want their interest to maintain their interest over the interest of people. So this is why we can, the security sector reform will not be effective if there is not the reform or if there is not the fight against drug traffic. So that will be the main points that we need to address, or the international community need to help the country to address, is to fight against the traffic of drug.
Right. Barry, I want to say thank you for taking out the time to join us and giving us your insights this today. And I know it comes at a great cost, given what's going on in the country. And thank you for being as honest and speaking truth to power as you just did. Amadou Barry joins us live from Canary, Guinea-Bissau, as the country has fallen back into a junta following the coup just before the announcement of the electoral elections that happened weeks ago. Amadou, many thanks. I appreciate you for coming on. That's pretty much how we wrap up the show this morning. Chiwete.
Yeah, of course. But before we go, we need to give a special birthday shout out to one of our directors, Raji. Happy birthday to you, Raji.
Happy birthday, Raji. I absolutely adore you. You're one of my favorite directors. If you don't know, the directors are those who are the ones who mix and direct what you watch on air, but also they're the ones in our ears as well. Yeah. And he's a cool kid. I absolutely adore him. And he plays the best music as well. He's a cool,
he's the one who plays the songs. He plays the songs.
Yeah, he has a great playlist. Well, Raji, happy birthday. That doesn't, even though I'm not going to be around, doesn't mean you should not leave my cake, because if I catch you.
Yeah.
Anyway, and bye from us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow, Monday, all the way to Friday for the trio that's going to be with you for Breakfast Central. And that's, of course, Joe, Olive, and not to forget Benga Borowa. So make sure to join them tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp, bright and early, all the way down to 10 a.m.
And of course, tomorrow, of course, we're going to get into the new month, December.
Happy New Month, everybody.
But over here in News Central, we're doing something really, really interesting. We'll be launching our Abuja studio tomorrow, so look out for that as well.
Absolutely. So make sure to catch it, because our 6 p.m. live will be coming in from Abuja, by the way. So make sure to catch that. So much is happening on the station. Keep it locked here. For us, it's goodbye and good morning. Bye for now.